I think so many times as creatives, we have this vision in our head of what we want to make. And so we just see people as commodities.
Yeah. They're not just a monkey performance.
Yeah. And I think they need to be seen as people.
Yeah. Welcome back, Salt Community. So glad you guys are with us. This is episode 46, and we're in for another treat. I feel like we say that every day, but
It is a treat.
It is a treat, and I'm just excited because I think we really have had a pretty awesome season, and we've heard from some of you all that it's been a good season. Man, we've already heard from our MC and our producer, a little behind the scenes. We've heard from Disney. We had Gary Molander, hiring tips from Dr. J. I mean, it's been a good season. So
And so much more good to come.
yeah.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
it's starting to warm up.
Oh, spring has sprung. It's like 80 degrees today.
Yeah.
Or it's supposed to be.
That's crazy because I feel like the
beautiful.
entire nation has been stuck under this like cold blizzard,
Mhm.
polar plunge, whatever you call it
Yeah,
nowadays,
yeah.
whatever the weatherman's calling
We're
it.
still dealing with the after effects of winter
Yes.
storms, but spring
Yeah, so
definitely is here.
some of you in New York, obviously you just and sort of the New England area, you guys just dealt with a huge snowstorm. But like
Mm-hmm.
a couple weeks ago, Nashville did, and I actually feel like, Caitlin, I'm driving around town and there are cut up trees everywhere on the side of the road because they're just waiting for them to
Piles.
be.
Yeah.
And I saw our city that we're in, they're actually converting it to mulch because I asked
Mm-hmm.
my wife, I was like, what are they doing with all of these trees?
Yeah.
Like, I hope something useful.
Yeah.
So if you're in the firewood business, this is maybe not the right place to.
Everyone's saving
Try
up
to
for
sell
summer fires
Yeah,
in the backyard. No, we got the snowdrops, we've got the daffodils, and it just feels like Easter is quickly approaching.
Easter is coming.
When the Easter flowers are blooming. You know
Yes.
it's soon.
What was that, like 3 weeks out?
3 weeks out.
3 weeks out.
Oh,
And what's next
yeah.
week? Let's talk about that.
Next week, prices increase on SALT
Yes.
2026 tickets. We have gotten the word out. We've been sharing the news. So if you guys have not gotten your tickets yet, salt2026.com.
We launched our theme website,
Mhm.
which I
All the
love.
branding, it's very different this year.
How
but it's
great thou
awesome.
art. So dig into that, look at some of
Mhm.
the stuff. And it's going to be fun to see our team be sharing kind of how that brand,
Yeah.
that's something we've never really talked about. But
No,
like
I
almost
would
every
love to talk
brand
about that
starts with a
process.
brand book.
Yeah.
And then I feel like by the time we get to conference, it has like taken on a life of its own.
Yeah.
One of the fun things about SALT is that we don't have like a full-time designer in-house. And so we tap about 4 or 5 throughout the process.
Yeah.
And it's fun to watch each designer kind of have their own little flair. And it's funny because normally the person who envisions or puts sort of legs to the brand initially is not someone who touches it very often
Nope. They
afterwards.
just kind of do that initial thing,
Yeah.
and then it's our team and other designers touching it from there.
So
We definitely need to talk about that process. I think people would be interested.
all right, future podcast
Yeah, future
episode,
pod.
maybe. It'd be fun to get some of our designers to say like, what's it
Oh,
like to take
yeah.
someone else's work, or what's it
Uh-huh.
like to kind of where's the pressure?
Definitely, yeah.
So
But that's not all that's happening. There's more than conference.
I know there's a lot.
Besides the podcast and conference, there is more going on at
What
SALT.
else? Tell me one more thing.
SALT community. If you
Yes.
have not heard the news, which hopefully you have, but if you have not heard, SALT Community is our new online platform where we are bringing people together. We are supplying the training videos and the learning for you throughout the year so that hopefully you can do your job a little bit better, not
Yeah.
feel so overwhelmed or burnt out,
I was talking to a
and
friend
not
the
in
other day.
isolation.
And he actually said one of the things he loves about SALT, and I've never thought about this, so I mean, this isn't me saying this, is a tech director saying this, but he was like, I just love the fact that you guys have pre-filtered basically all the content that
Yeah.
our team needs to learn. And yes, we can go out to YouTube. Yes, we could possibly find this stuff on AI tools or whatever. But he was like, what I love is that you guys have made sure it's church safe, it's Sunday morning ready, it's church, volunteer proof.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that is like the most encouraging thing ever. So I feel like that's maybe the
Yeah.
encouragement part of SALT Community.
Absolutely. And, we were talking about some behind the scenes of how SALT does that. If you go to saltcommunity.com, you can create just a free starter account, get some resources, watch some of our foundational training videos. There's a few
Which is
out
a
there.
ton. Yeah,
But we
of good
also
stuff.
have some behind the scenes content.
Yeah.
We want you to see how we do
And
things.
premium resource download. So there's some, good shortcuts and hacks to kind of
Yeah.
help save time in ministry. So
Yeah.
Well, to set up this episode, I want to go way back. I don't know if you've ever heard the like famous pastor's story of like he was having a conversation with kids and he asked the kids, "What is the Lord's name?"
Oh,
And one
no,
kid,
I
have you ever heard this?
No.
And one kid said, "Oh, Andy." And he was
Andy.
like, Andy? Or why is it Andy? And he goes, because my mom always said, and he walks with me and he talks with me.
Oh my word. That's like the best. That's
So,
such a kid answer.
Today
too.
we have someone who is named after the Lord,
After
Andy
the Lord,
Irwin.
Andy Irwin.
Not the Lord, but Andy Irwin, Kingdom Story Company, director of I Can Only Imagine 2.
Him and his brother, the Irwin brothers.
Yeah, but I actually don't
Mhm.
think John was a part of this one.
No?
John's now part of like Wonder Project.
Oh
if
yeah.
I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they still are their own brotherly thing,
Yeah.
but then they have split a little bit, haven't they?
So 2 things before we jump in real quick. One, we got to have Andy and Tim Timmons, who's really kind of the like core character of this story.
Yeah.
At SALT this past year. Tim has been a part of SALT in the past. He did all of our worship in 2020. And anyway, he's become kind of a really close friend of the SALT community. And so it was fun to have the 2 of them. We released that on YouTube
That's
a couple
on
weeks
YouTube.
ago.
Yeah.
And that whole interview on stage, he actually does the live version
Of the song Even If.
Even If.
Yep. Mhm.
And it's incredible. I think it's actually the best recording I've heard, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then I got a chance backstage to sit down with Andy. And so what's fun is that the full stage interview and the full backstage podcast interview are both out on YouTube. So go take a look at that. But
We want to share just a little bit with
yeah, here's a
us.
little clip
Yeah.
because I think there's something interesting we can talk about. So just like in any organization, a leader sort of, the oil drips from the beard.
Mm.
I have to imagine that Dennis Quaid, Michael Scene, the idea that like Dennis's performance leveled up everybody else on that set.
It did.
What do you do intentionally to build culture in your community?
With culture, it's really about it's this philosophy of it's amazing the things a person can accomplish when they don't care who gets the credit. I think Ronald Reagan said that, but originality is forgetting the source. So, but it's like that idea that if we all get our fingerprints on this as a team, and we all make this something special, we all get to take the bow together, and it's not about who gets the credit.
Yeah.
There's something really special with that, and with cast, I like actors are something that I love working with actors, and actors want safety. They want to feel safe. They want to feel a part of a team. They want to feel safe. And if you can make somebody feel safe, they will let their guard down and stop worrying about how they look, and they'll be in the moment.
How do you make someone feel safe? How do you make a cast feel safe?
I think you see them as people and not as opportunities. I think so many times as creatives, we have this vision in our head of what we want to make. And so we just see people as commodities.
Yeah. They're not just a monkey performer.
Yeah. And I think they need to be seen as people.
Yeah.
And I don't care how big a name actor it is, they're a person.
Yeah.
And if you can see them as a person, that they have, their own backstory, their own traumas, their own fears, and paranoias, and you embrace them for where they're at and give them a safe place. And as Christians, that's the opportunity for the gospel. Is a lot of times these people have not been in a safe place the majority of their career. And when you provide that as a Christian, there's a real opportunity, and we cast the movie accordingly.
Wow. I'm curious. I'm just sitting here thinking about the fact that you treat people as your cast as people, not opportunities. How many of maybe not how many, but are all of your actors in every movie you've done a Christian or?
They're not. I actually cast very intentionally the opposite direction sometimes.
Tell me about that.
I feel really called, John and I both had this philosophy as we kind of came up in the industry of the idea of targeting benevolent skeptics, people that aren't hostile to Christianity. They just don't know they need it.
Yeah.
Because if the opportunity at hand is evangelism, that can be through the product, and it can also be through the process.
Yeah.
That's really good. I'm going to write that one down. So it can be the product, or it can be the process. And so when you cast people that are on a journey, it eliminates the fear, because it's like, I think a lot of times as Christians, we're afraid that if we work with anybody different than us, somehow we're going to be infected. And I think as long as I'm controlling the content and I control the message,
You're also the director.
and I'm also the director. Yeah.
I need more empathy.
Then we can cast accordingly. So like some of the people that we've cast, are on their own journey. And so for instance, on American Underdog, I work with Anna Paquin, who's an Oscar winner, is the youngest Oscar winner in the history of the Oscars. So won Oscar, I think, at age 9 for the piano. And Anna read the script playing Brenda Warner, and Brenda Warner, Kurt Warner's wife. And she read the script. We had a Zoom, and she said, this story has connected with me on a level that I can't explain. I love this character. But she said, can we talk about the elephant in the room? My views are completely opposite of yours, and I'm not really a person of faith. And she said, "Is that a problem for me playing a Christian?"
And you said,
and I said,
but it
"Anna,"
just connected with you.
yeah, I was like, "Anna, absolutely not. As it's not a problem, as long as you can fight to correctly portray and understand the faith of the person that you're playing in the movie." And I said, if you could do that, then there's no issue. She's like, "Well, I do that with any character I take on, especially a real life character." I said, "Then who wouldn't want to cast an Oscar winner?" And so she came in her first day on set and was like, "I've watched every one of Brenda Warner's Women of Faith speeches. I've read every one of her books. She talks about it being a relationship instead of a religion. She talks about being born again. What does it mean to be born again? How do you become born again?"
Goodness.
And I would have these like hour conversations every day with Anna Paquin about the gospel. It's evangelism.
Yes.
And so we cast the best actors as long as they can have a respect for our audience and the faith of the person they're portraying. And most recently, that was the case for Milo Ventimiglia in this new film playing Tim Timmons. He really got Tim's faith right, and he killed it.
Wow.
And he had a respect for it. And as a result, I think it sinks in.
That's so cool. You're working on I Can Only Imagine 2 right now.
Yeah.
It's done shooting.
Yep.
I want to go through the creative process of that a little bit.
Sure,
We've got a lot of creatives in our community. What was the greatest, hurdle or obstacle or challenge you had to overcome? Because let me give context real quick. I have to imagine a lot of people are listening or watching this going, okay, Andy, Kingdom Story Company, Lionsgate, you got lots of money behind you. I have come to learn no matter how big the budget is, there's still a budget, right? Like we always
the problems are the same.
Yes. So talk about
it's heartbreaking
challenge or a stumbling block that you guys had to overcome in the creative process there.
Yeah, no matter how much budget you get, it's the same problems. It's just they just become more sizable, but there's the same issues. And so going into this one, we had a philosophical issue that we had to overcome and some practical ones. Philosophically, the story of this one is about the song "Even If," and it's about Bart's journey that we break happily ever after, and we answer the whole end of the equation in a different way. And so the first movie was a father-son movie. It was Bart's father as an abusive father, and it's Bart towards his father as the son. And this one, Bart is the father, and he's trying to connect with his teenage son, and through tragedy and loss and a lot of different things, until he finds something better. And so going into it, we're like, sequels are hard because I didn't want it to be a cash grab. I didn't want it to be something that we just did it because we could.
Yeah.
I wanted it to be a reason. And there's been a lot of sequels in our space that were just doing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, it's like it's a formula that worked. Let's do it
Yep.
again. But you wanted to make it original. You
Yes.
wanted to make it unique.
Yep. And so our problem was, how do we get a Paddington 2? Paddington 2 is a better movie, even though Paddington 1 is a great movie. And it's like, how do you get a better movie? And so we fought really hard to nuance it and make it somewhere new and fresh, to introduce you to all these characters you love and take it somewhere completely unexpected. The thing I love about the movie is when audiences see it, it just did its test screening with Lionsgate with a test audience. It scored higher than the original.
That's amazing.
And that's just a tribute to the amazing team that put it together, and that the story is that much better. And so if you love the first one, this one is a better story. But it was hard. We had to fight really hard and listen to the audience to get it right. Second one was the technical issue. It was like, we end the movie at Red Rocks. And I picked Red Rocks, and they were like, because I thought it was a cool location.
How many days did you get at Red Rocks?
I had Red Rocks for 6 hours.
I was going to say, because most people don't get it more than a day.
Yeah, so Red Rocks is booked for 3 years in advance.
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah.
There's a band there every day. And the rest of the year it's under snow. And so...
and you didn't plan this 3 years ago.
No, we planned it like, it'd be cool if we shot this at Red Rocks.
Yeah.
And so somehow the band got one date. We had one date.
This was Mercy Me.
Mercy Me.
Okay.
And they got it for one date. And we had the venue for a total of 6 hours that we could film. And so we did a split show where Mercy Me did half a concert, and we shot for the other half of the concert. And the fans stayed till 2 a.m.
All day.
They are insane.
All
They
day.
did
Oh,
so
my
great.
goodness.
But 8,500 people. But we had enough time, because there was a noise ordinance and a whole bunch of other stuff after midnight. We had enough time to shoot everything towards the audience, all the big stuff.
Yeah.
And Red Rocks isn't an easy place to film in, but it's gorgeous. So we shot all that way. So I went to the producers and I said, guys, we need to build a scale model, a 2/3 scale model of the Red Rock stage on a sound stage to film all the close-up work. And they're like, that'd be cost prohibitive. I'm like, you're right. Well, what we could do is go back out to Red Rocks and film a second date there, and just go back out and film another date for all the close-up work. They're like, we'll build you a stage on a sound stage. And so we built everything, and the sound stage, the art team killed it, and it's so cinematic and so big and so beautiful. Hearing Even F played with that crowd was sacred, and what the crowd did that was unexpected is when it got to the big chorus at the end, like impromptu, this crowd of 8,000 people stood to their feet.
That's amazing.
And it was just like chills. And I was like, there's video footage of me on my Instagram where I'm like freaking out, losing my mind, being like, is this happening? Is this happening? This is magic. So it's so hard to capture lightning in a bottle twice, but this movie does it. And it's not because of me. It's just because the story's that good.
What a wonderful interview, Luke, that you were able to do with Andy. I just love that conversation, and especially there at the end talking about Red Rocks. We both have a heart for production people.
Yeah.
And you stumbled upon an amazing little clip on social media the other day.
Yeah, a couple of days ago,
Yeah.
Bart Millard basically actually gave a shout out talking about that exact scene that Andy was just talking about at Red Rocks and the soundstage that they built in Nashville. So
I go watch the YouTube of their main stage interview because they talk about how they filmed that.
yeah.
But check out this clip.
Yep.
Hey guys, Bart here with a little movie magic. Did you know that the last scene in I Can Only Imagine 2, when we're at Red Rocks in front of 8,000 to 9,000 people and it almost looks fake? Well, the crowd is very, very, very real. But we didn't have enough time to get all the shots because we needed to interact with the crowd. And so we decided that when we got back to Nashville, set designers would rebuild the entire stage of Red Rocks down to the rock wall behind us, everything. And they made a piece of art. Check this out. Being a set designer is kind of a selfless job because if you do your job really well, you want the crowd to never notice that it's not real. So I'm just taking a second to say, job incredibly well done, set designers. Take your bow.
Yeah, so I mean, I love that he just gave mad props to the set team and if you notice in that video, if you listen to it online, just go watch it. Or if you listen to it, go watch it on YouTube. But he like zooms into someone we assume that's the set designer.
Yeah.
But yeah, Caitlin, it's funny because at SALT 2025, one of the things that was really neat is that they gave a free screening to everybody in the room. This was like a kind of surprise that I didn't see coming. And
Little bonus for coming to SALT.
yeah. And what a neat gift. Honestly and transparently, I am here to confess I did not take advantage of that offer, even though that was basically given to our whole staff.
We can reframe this.
as well.
Luke wanted to support the film
Yeah,
in
yeah,
theaters.
yeah.
It is currently in theaters.
That's currently in theaters, and I wanted to support it. Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to do. But I did, actually. So my wife and I, we went on a date night this weekend, and we watched it. And I just have to say, I watched I Can Only Imagine 1. I remember in the moment after I saw it, I was like, this is the first Christian film that I've seen that actually really impresses me. Because sometimes it's cheesy, and the acting's not great, and the filmmaking's not great. And so anyway, I Can Only Imagine 1 really kind of caused me to go, oh, this is possible, right? Chosen is kind of even further proven that. But I Can Only Imagine 2 is better than I Can Only Imagine 1. I'm here to say it.
Are you biased at all because you know Tim Timmons?
Maybe. I did tell my wife, I was like, that made it more real. I know his story. I think Milo nailed some of his quirks, like some of the things that I've heard him say backstage and some of his jokes and some of the like practical things or practical jokes that he's done like on tour in the film are totally things I could see him doing.
Well done, Milo.
But it's a tearjerker. I mean, I teared up. It's a rich story. There's a lot of depth to it. And so anyway, I encourage if you haven't seen it, go see it. It's a great date night. It's a wholesome movie, and it may be good for older kids too. I wouldn't bring my kids. They're 4 and under. So we didn't bring them. We had a night out, which was nice. So
I guess we have this great kind of history to the pickles story.
Yeah. So in the movie, there's this scene about they're getting an award. I assumed it was the Dove Awards, although it's not the Dove Awards in the movie. They made a whole
Maybe
fake
can't say
award
that.
show. And right before they win, the band writes a word on Bart Millard, lead singer of Mercy Me's arm. And basically he had to like sneak it in to
To
the
his
acceptance
acceptance
speech.
Okay.
And he does. And that word is pickles. And we were talking
Perfect.
right before we hit start, and our
Yeah.
studio manager actually said, "Oh, that's funny. That actually happened in a little bit different context." And that's what I love
He's
about
got like the
filmmaking.
history behind pickles.
Yes, and I love this about filmmaking because like you have to write it into a story in the right way. Like these
Yeah.
are fun things that make comic relief in a film, but it didn't happen at the Dove Awards or wherever award show.
Yeah.
And so Dustin, our studio manager, was like, "Yeah, actually, we were in this like media hit, and they were having to basically do like media hit after media hit after. It was like the same questions all day long." And he was
so
like, "Let's make this
bored.
fun."
Yeah.
And so apparently they just started like writing words on a whiteboard, and pickles was one of them. And that apparently was a story that like
carried over.
carried
Oh,
over,
I
so.
love that. Yeah.
It's kind of fun when some of that gets to do that.
Yeah. Kudos to Dustin, our studio manager.
Yeah.
Well, that is awesome. I love, again, that Red Rocks, the production side of it. But there are things that Bart talked about that I feel
Andy,
Andy,
yeah.
yes. Andy is playing on some recurring themes we've seen this season.
Yeah, I thought about that.
Psychological safety being
I thought about that in
one of
listening
them.
to that again.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we've talked about psychological safety, his whole line that like actors perform best
Yeah.
when they feel safe. I actually think that's true in teams and creative teams in general.
Oh, yeah,
Obviously, we've talked about that in a
definitely.
variety of different ways.
And not just trust falls.
Yeah.
That's not the kind of team building and safety we're talking about.
Yeah, but to see your team as people, but I was and not commodities. I was probably actually more moved by his line when he talked about people. We need to see that both the product,
Yeah.
the end result, and the process of how we get to that product are both vehicles to help people be transformed by the gospel.
Yes.
And you talked a little bit about, when we were prepping for this, the benevolent skeptics.
I love that phrase. And of course, I love Anna Paquin. So hearing him talk about working with her was cool. But that phrase, benevolent skeptics, it's someone who, they're not a Christian, but they may be skeptical, but they want to learn more. They want to understand. They want to get it right. And whether that's an actor or someone doing a production role, or like you said, in our field of creative ministry, that can look so many different things, but they want to do their job well.
Yeah.
They want to do it with excellence. And we've talked so much about that, excellence over perfectionism, but they're going to be respectable still. They're going to be mindful of the space and the people that they're talking to, and they want to learn.
Yeah, my hot take is I actually think that production ministry specifically has the best chance to invite non-Christians in to be volunteers.
Yes. Yeah.
And there's, a lot of ministries that need tons of volunteers. But the one thing that makes production and even maybe creative ministry, whether it's photography or it's social media or it's running sound or lyrics or lighting or stage manager or whatever, those are all roles that they don't have to have an ability to express the gospel. They don't have to have the skill set to sort of teach the sort of Christian faith, but they actually get to be invited into the process. I'll never forget Doug Fields, who's a famous youth pastor, started Simple Youth Ministry. He used to always say that we shouldn't measure success in the church by the number of people in seats, but by the number of people who serve. Because that's the real mark of like, have you engaged people? And I know from my own journey personally, like I deepened in my faith once I knew the church could use me. And as I was used by the church and used in the kingdom, I was like, oh Lord, you've given me a purpose in my life. Like, and that actually drew me closer to him because I was like, I want to seek you as I continue to work out my gift, my craft, whatever.
Yeah.
And so I think there's an opportunity here.
It's
Again,
really interesting that you say that, because I feel like we have seen a slight trend where churches are less about go join a small group to get involved and to stay at our church. And it's more of go volunteer, go find a volunteer position, because that will get you integrated in the church.
Yeah, and I just think there's an opportunity, and I want to encourage someone, and I know this is a hot take, and there's probably someone listening that's like, absolutely not. We are not allowing someone who is not a Jesus follower to run camera on Sunday morning for us. But I just want to push. I want to challenge a little bit, and I want to say to you, why? Like, what about running a camera makes, if you're a Christian, what makes that, a prerequisite to being a great camera operator? And I just think if we think that the end product, right, whatever the cameras look like on screen, whatever the Sunday morning experience looks like, whatever the live stream looks like, whatever the photos that we capture on Sunday look like, and the process to getting there, if both of those can be vehicles to help people be exposed to, transformed by, maybe we're the only Bible someone's ever going to read, a non-Christian's going to read.
Yeah.
What if we could invite them into our process and actually let them come side to side with a Christian and let them basically just rub off and let them
Product and the process.
Yes.
Mhm.
So I love that. I
Yeah.
love that he went there. Now I think there should be some guardrails.
I was going to say, let's talk about this. Let's say our church, or maybe I've convinced my pastor, hey, my department, we can't find people in our church to come volunteer to be a part of
Yeah.
this. We've decided to go look at, ask the community and people that we have connections to from work or whatever else, the gym that we might know. What are those guardrails? How do
Yeah.
we make this successful for us as a team, who are the Christians, who are the full-time church workers, or the other volunteers, and successful for the person who's stepping into this environment that they're not as familiar with?
Yeah, I think first you just got to set expectations.
Mhm.
I mean, you got to make it really clear, and you got to say that up front. I think you've got to say these are the non-negotiables, and it's just what Andy said
Yeah.
in here. Like, you don't have to be a Christian to embody the fullness of the faith of Kurt Warner's wife.
Mhm.
And I think the same thing is for us. Like, we don't need to say that you have to participate in every aspect, but we want you to be respectful of what we're doing. So if you're going to do a pre-service prayer, you're going to do a Bible study or devotion, I think it's just really smart to say to someone, if you know they're not a Christian, hey, we'd love to invite you into this.
Mhm.
It is not a requirement, but like, this is what we do just to get on the same page. And I mean, we at our company, we obviously we have the Salt site, which is very bold about our faith, but we have a live event production company, and that isn't as faith forward. A lot of our leadership are outspoken Christians, and I, in every meal, will say like, to the King, and it's like my way of praying before a meal without forcing
We
a prayer.
love it.
Right?
Yeah.
And I have
Yeah.
a sticker on my computer that actually reminds me of that. But I just think it's clarifying that participation. Hey,
Yeah.
we'd love for you to be involved. This is a team thing. This is a unifying thing.
Prayer, worship,
But
you
not
know, certain
expecting
conversations.
it,
Yeah.
right? And allowing them to kind of slowly, because again, I don't want to force faith on anybody.
Mhm.
I want them to rub shoulders with you long enough that they go, wow, that team's the real deal. They really do love this real Jesus.
Yeah.
I want more of it.
Yeah.
We've got to lead in a way where non-Christians, if they are serving on our teams, are more intrigued by the Jesus we follow than by the skill that we're asking them to step into.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, the opportunity we have.
And I think it's important too. It's so easy to get caught up in, oh, this person's the not Christian on the team. We
Yeah.
got to convert them. It's like what Andy was saying. Like, these are people.
Yeah.
They're individuals. They have their own pains and hurts, just like we do. They have their own story. Their story is not just that they're not a Christian.
That's right.
Like, remember to focus on the merits of what they're doing well, that they're excellent in their craft the way the other team members are excellent in their craft.
And the youth ministry, you
Mhm.
can't be a youth leader on a youth retreat and not be a Christian. Because if the student has a really hard moment, needs to talk about things that are going on in life, like you
Mhm.
probably want someone who's a Jesus follower, disciple trained, church member
Yeah.
to walk alongside them. You probably don't want like Johnny, who
Mhm.
isn't a Christian, to be like, yeah, let me help you with this.
Mhm.
So I feel like tech ministries, creative ministries, we have a little more.
We
So,
definitely do. Yeah. Okay. I want to ask a question we don't have to deep dive into, but just maybe a question for you guys in the church. Are you hiring? Maybe some of you are. Are you hiring non-Christians because you genuinely value their skill, or just because you couldn't find a Christian who could do it well enough? Just feel like that's a little bit of a heart posture that sometimes we need a heart check on. Mhm.
I almost want to push back there and go, I don't think that's the real question that I'm coming at, but I do think that's a valid question to process.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's probably more kind of as Andy said, like he's intentionally bringing in non-Christians because he wants to involve them in the process. Now,
Mhm.
I think another guideline here, another guardrail is you got to pair non-Christians with well-established
Yes.
Christians or members.
That's
Do
a
not let them
great-
go on their own.
Mhm.
Like I think, I forget who it was, but we've had a variety of workshop teachers over the years at conference that talk about being a good sound engineer is being an extension of the worship team, right?
Mhm.
So if you're not a Christian, if you're not someone who this is an act of worship to create a Sunday morning mix, are you going to be able to maybe create and mix with the sort of like Holy Spirit inspiration that we're all invited into? I don't know. But I will say this, if you're not a Christian, you're
a
probably still
great-
going to be able to get a good mix. Are you
Yeah.
going to be a great mix, spiritually forward? I don't know. But I wouldn't want to put a non-Christian just completely on their own island without someone who's coached them, mentored them, encouraged them, walked alongside them.
But on the flip side, someone running lyrics. Anyone can learn the songs
Yeah.
to cue those lyrics right at the right moment.
But I'll push into your question, because your question was
Mhm.
right, something about like are we hiring them because we genuinely value the skill or because we
Yeah.
can't find a Christian? I do think if skill is the problem, I mean, selfless plug here, but this is where Salt Community hopefully can help.
Yeah.
We want to try and level.
I
it
was
up.
just about to say, it's maybe us as Christians can do better. Maybe we can level up that we're hitting that excellence mark. We
Yeah.
talked about that so much with film and arts production too, and other skill
Excellence
sets.
is the new gold standard. I mean, it's just sort of what we need to do, especially as production and technical elements in a service have raised. It's kind of what people have come to expect. So
Yeah.
I think that's important.
Yeah, especially if your pastor is saying, no, there must be people of faith on our teams.
Yeah.
Well, great. Get the
So
skills you need.
I think that brings me back maybe to my third guardrail,
Mm-hmm.
and that is create a respectful work environment, but really celebrate the craft and the contribution,
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily just their faith. Because I think sometimes in the church we can get that mixed up. Oh, well, we need a Christian more than we need someone. Listen, cues are cues,
Yeah.
right? Like executing cues on Sunday morning are cues. And you either have someone who has that focus, has that diligence, has the ability to get that done. In fact, I think about this a lot in some of our live event production stuff. We may bring a non-Christian into a Christian event because they're really good at executing cues.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes there's a guy that I'm like, man, you've got all the right attitude and you've got the right heart posture, but for some reason or another, you haven't
missing the mark.
leveled up
Yeah.
your skill set. And
Yeah.
so I think it's good to highlight, man, if you're going to celebrate them, celebrate their skill, not necessarily their spiritual background.
Yeah.
And then I think it's also a great way to highlight and celebrate people's spiritual. Hey, you just have been a prayer warrior for us, and I just want to say thanks for that. So,
Absolutely. Just as much as you would their excellence in a physical craft
yeah.
as well.
So hopefully this conversation has at least
Uh-huh.
encouraged someone to go, all right, let's take a chance.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's a good conversation to have with your pastor. It's a good conversation to have with your worship team. It's a good conversation to have as an executive level leadership because there's an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that
You don't have to struggle because you can't find those people missing in those slots.
I think
Yeah.
creative and technical ministries is a better opportunity to invite somebody in than some of the other ministries.
Yeah, definitely. Well, go check out Andy's full interview with Luke. It is up on our YouTube page. You can hear all the fun little behind the scenes movie
Yeah.
tidbits as well as more of his theory and how he practices this in his, on his movies and on his shows that he works on.
Yeah, he's a gold mine.
Yeah. And then join us next week. We're talking to Bella Taylor Smith.
Let's go.
He's got some new music releasing, some of it recorded at SALT, and we want to have you be a part of that.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
Can't wait to see you.